Greetings, Rebel fans! My name is Jason Kelly, and this is the Let's Run podcast. I want to welcome you all to the show today as we talk about a very exciting day. We have Josh Pastner, our beloved head coach, the Rice connoisseur, the man with the passion to turn this thing around, has a very solid day in the transfer portal, has a very solid day with recruiting. We saw the Rebels add some really good targets. There are still questions about what Josh Pastner's goals and plans are for the remainder of this recruiting period. But we can tell that he's throwing his name around a lot with a lot of different players, a lot of different schools. So tons of updates to talk about. We should also talk about UNLV football. We had the spring game. And, it wasn't a spring game, actually. UNLV decided not to have a spring game this season. Unlike last season, the piano man himself, all the guards. Yeah, we have a lot of guards right now. We'll talk about that. The roster as of right now is still a little imbalanced. There's still a lot of work to do. But there we are. Yes, I apologize that I was a few minutes late. Thanks, brother. Yeah, good. But the UNLV elected not to do a spring game this season. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that decision. I respect Dan Mullen for doing that. I think it's probably the right call in the modern era. But the first thing that we'll get into is UNLV basketball. Let's go over all of the announcements, all of the things that have changed since the last time we talked, because there is a lot. So let's jump on 3, the portal tracking transfer that kind of helps you keep track of who's joined the team and who hasn't. I've kind of moved these to Tuesday nights. I think that's probably an okay place for the Let's Run podcast to be. In the off season, I don't really see the need to do more than once a week shows. I think that's probably enough in the off season. Unless something very big happens. So I would expect for at least the time being, the Let's Run podcast to be a Tuesday night type of show. I'm thinking that's where we are. I might move it to more frequently, but ultimately I feel like I feel pretty confident in where we are. So the first big recruit that we got was Draw. Now, I actually don't really know how to say Draw's name. Let me make sure that I have his full name so his name is Draw Gibbs Lawson. I think it's Draw Gibbs. I don't think there's anything else to his name. It's kind of an odd name, but Draw Gibbs Lawhorn. My apologies, Lawhorn. A sophomore. We see him. I guess I'll present my screen here so that we can keep up the names of all the players, because there's a lot of guys, a lot of guards, as Master Rebel says. UNLV picked up a commitment from Draw. Draw played for Illinois. He was a part of that Elite 8 team. Draw comes, I believe, with 3 years of eligibility remaining. Let me check. I want to make sure so I think he's played, where is he at? So he played 2 years at Illinois. His freshman year and his sophomore year. Both years, his freshman year, he didn't play a ton. That's to be expected in college basketball. Freshman recruits generally don't contribute a ton. We might see a little bit of that for the Runnin' Rebels this coming season with guys like Tyron Jones and Mason Abitin. And James Evans, if you want to qualify him as a freshman, I guess you could call him a redshirt freshman. But Josh Draw's first couple of years, his first year at Illinois, this is his stat profile. Draw got a lot of did not plays. When he did get in, he probably his best game of the season came actually when he was a freshman. His first game ever as a freshman. He scored 18 points against Eastern Illinois. But as you can see, Draw did not play a ton his freshman year. Did play a little bit in that Elite 8 game against UConn. But he was kind of used as a depth piece. In his second year, he came into his own a little bit. He didn't end the season great. You could see that towards the end of the season, he started to get his minutes kind of cut down as Illinois kind of shortened their rotation. Draw didn't play against Kentucky or Xavier. I mean, he did play, but like 1 minute or 5 minutes kind of after games were already over. The last six games of the season, he fell out of the rotation, but early on in the season, especially my favorite game that I went back and watched from him was a game when Illinois played at Wisconsin. Draw finished with 17 points in that game, 4 of 5 from 2, 3 of 7 from 3. Showed really explosive athleticism that I think's probably the most impressive thing about his game. Draw is a really good athlete. And you see in his second season, especially in the middle of the year, he had a really good stretch, 4 of 4, 4 of 5, where he was scoring somewhere between 8 to 12 points, all the way up to 15 or 16 points a few times. It's kind of interesting that the first game of each season when Illinois was playing rough, like not good opponents, hit like his highest scoring game at Illinois was 21 points against Eastern Illinois. Draw is really a freak athlete. And I think that, UNLV had been targeted to Mikey Williams, who was who certainly was an explosive player. He had a little bit of controversy. I want to make sure that I have the sound off here, but I think everybody can see my screen here. I want to make sure that I'm pulling up Draw's. Yeah, Tavon says, we're probably not getting Mikey. I think that Draven, there you go. It's Draw everywhere, which is interesting. So Draven, I'm going to keep calling him Draw. I think that's okay. You watch him play, and he's got a really pretty shot. These are his highlights. I guess I can probably make this bigger. These are his highlights. I really like his form. His legs are good. His power, his weight transition on his 3-point shot is good. Ball handling is solid. Off the dribble, I think he's got some potential as a 3-point shooter and he likes to take threes above the break. So I think that's pretty useful for kind of a lead guard, which I would expect Draw to play a lot of lead guard minutes next season. As a catch and shoot shooter, he shows potential, but sometimes his shots can come, his shots aren't always on a perfect line. I don't think he's a great catch and shoot 3-point shooter, but I think he could develop it. I think he's going to be spending a lot of time on ball. I wouldn't really expect Draw to be the kind of guy that's sitting in the corner for a lot of the season. But his form's good, and I think that he can develop a nice catch and shoot type 3-point shot. But I wouldn't expect Draw to be a deadly catch and shoot shooter. A lot of his shots are going to come off the dribble. My favorite part of the game is the part that it's showing right now. He's very good at getting dribble penetration and taking and making difficult shots. This highlight reel is going to show both his misses and his makes, but he takes a lot of very difficult shots, which, that's kind of a double-sided blade. Oftentimes when you see a guy taking shots like this, you can feel like he's wasting possessions, but a lot of times in the Kevin Kruger era, especially, UNLV's defense or offense would break down and just need somebody to kind of save it. And Draw shows an elite level of explosivity and athleticism that's going to really help him kind of bail out the Rebel offense. I think Draw is going to be our starting point guard next season. I think he's a good target to be a starting point guard, the kind of guy that's been at a big-time school like Illinois for a couple years, who's gotten Big Ten reps, and who can really blossom into an explosive lead guard in the Mountain West that's going to do really well. So Draw, this is probably easily my favorite signing of the transfer portal period at this point. And this is another thing. Do you think Draw likes Baconators? No, I don't. Okay. Yes, the Baconator stuff is amazing. So this is something else that I would say about Draw is Illinois fans were like crushed when he left. I went on, message boards with other fan bases to kind of talk about him a little bit. And Illinois fans really thought that he was going to explode and have a great season next year. And so it's a very good sign for a player when the fan base that the player is coming from is sad to see them go. Like, I would say most Rebel fans would probably be very complimentary of a guy like Pop. Now, Pop didn't always play great for for UNLV last season, but I feel like we feel pretty good about Pop as a player, and we would probably say really positive things about him. And so, the fact that Illinois fans really didn't want to see Pop go, I think says a lot about him, and I think that's going to lead to a very good upcoming season for him. And I think he's going to be I think he might be our star. I don't think he can be our leading scorer. I think we probably need one other player that could kind of take the mantle of leading scorer and leading playmaker. But I think as a secondary playmaker and a secondary scorer, that draw is going to be really good. So let's talk about the next guy that we added. Another really solid player. I think this is a really good ad. Al Green. So Al, sorry, this is UNLV's website announcing him. He was originally a junior college player. He played for, I'm not sure, San Diego City College. He was a very highly ranked, a very highly ranked JUCO player coming out of those ranks. And he ended up going to Louisiana Tech. Now UNLV beat out schools like Reno, Colorado State for Al Green. And you pull up his player profile. Let's share this tab instead. He's only got one season at the D1 level, but he was a high volume, high efficiency 3-point shooter. He took 125 3-pointers last season for a 43% clip. That would put him at 51st in the country in 3-point shooting. In fact, in his conference, which I believe, I can't remember which conference, maybe the Southland Conference, they play in Conference USA. In Conference USA, Al Green was the best 3-point shooter percentage-wise. And I think, and this isn't low volume. I mean, he was taking a bunch of threes. He's decent size, 6'3", a junior. I think he might have one more year of eligibility, depending on what the NCAA decides to do with these JUCO rulings, because he did play 2 years at JUCO. So we could have 2 years of eligibility for Al Green as opposed to just one. But he is a high volume, elite shooter, a guy that, you look at his season at Louisiana Tech, look at his 3-pointers. I mean, these games, 7 3-pointers, 5 3-pointers, 7 3-pointers, 10 3-pointers attempted, 6 or 7 3-pointers attempted. This is a guy that likes to light it up from the outside. And in my tape preview of Al, I noticed that he wasn't afraid to take threes off the dribble, but he is very good. And I would say he's probably going to be a bit more of a catch and shoot 3-point option as opposed to an off the dribble type 3-point option. Al is awesome. Very good pickup. I'm a big fan. I think that UNLV is getting a guy, a good comparison signing that I would say, except I think he's actually a better shooter than Justin Webster. But a guy that I would compare Al Green to is probably Justin Webster. UNLV fans may not like that comparison and may not think Justin Webster was all that good, but Justin Webster was absolutely a solid level player for UNLV, and decent role player. You look at Al Green and you may be expecting Al Green to come in and, if you're expecting him to come in and be a star who's scoring 20 points a game, you're going to be disappointed. But oftentimes for this Louisiana Tech team, he was their most important offensive player. I mean, look at their last game of the season. Al Green, this is one of my favorite things that I saw about Al Green. In Louisiana Tech's last game of the season, Al Green scored 28 points on 11 of 19 from the field and didn't even make a 3-pointer. He, doesn't get a ton of assists. He's not a great ball handler. He's not a great distributor. But to take on that level of offensive load, I think offensively his ceiling is a lot higher than Justin Webster. But if I had to make a comparison, I would say that Justin Webster is probably the guy that I would compare them most to. So I think Al Green is a very good, a very, very, very good pickup. I'm glad that he chose UNLV over a school like Reno or Colorado State. I think he's going to be a solid player. He might start. He might be the 6th man off the bench. I'm not 100% sure what the school is going to decide there. But I feel very confident that Al Green will be a solid rotation piece for the Runnin' Rebels next season. So next player we're going to talk about is a guy that, when I first saw him and what school he's coming from, I wasn't blown away by him. But the more that I dug into Howie Fleming Jr.'s, and I'm just going to call him Howie, the more I dug into Howie's collegiate career and his trajectory as a player, the more impressed that I became with him as a prospect and as a player that's going to join and probably play significant minutes for the Runnin' Rebels next season. So let's dive into Howie Fleming Jr., his career. Howie started out at Illinois State, didn't play a ton as a freshman and sophomore, played a little bit more as a sophomore than he did as a freshman, but, was kind of just a role player both of those seasons. He went to a school called Winthrop, and, he did deal with some injuries that season, and Winthrop, I think, had him playing at the wrong position. They had him playing as a small forward. Howie's probably more of a shooting guard than he is a small forward. I think he fits in very nicely to a starting shooting guard role, a guy who can kind of do it all. But his last season at Rio Grande Valley, I think, is probably his most impressive. And, he didn't start out the year great, didn't play a ton. He's getting 20 minutes. But basically in the middle of the year, Howie Fleming is a 6'5", so really good size shooting guard who can play some points. You can play him a little bit at the small forward, but I think it's important to keep him at the guard position. Howie essentially, turned middle of the season, became, I would say, UT Rio Grande Valley's best player. And UNLV current assistant Justin Wilkins was an assistant coach at Rio Grande Valley, so he was probably instrumental in landing Howie for us. By the end of the season, this team, I think it's safe to say that Howie might have been their best player. He was taking and making a lot of 3-pointers. You see 4 out of 7, 3 out of 7, 3 out of 7, 3 out of 6. And in his career, a concern had been that he wasn't taking a high volume of 3-pointers. But ultimately, I think he is the kind of guy where things have really clicked for him as a basketball player. And I guess we'll bring up his highlights. You see UT Rio Grande is not a big school by any means, but Howie's a guy who has probably always had the physical skills to be a really solid player, but just hasn't quite been able to put it together. And we saw at the end of last season him really step into his role, really start to make 3-pointers. He's not the type of guy that's going to be he's not going to lead the Rebels in scoring. You see here, he's a good athlete, willing cutter, good shooter. I like his mechanics. I think he's a willing passer. He turns the ball over a lot, but he is a willing passer. And so it's going to be important for Coach Pastner to kind of keep him within a system. But I just think the size and athleticism, and he's not, he's 6'5", but he's not small 6'5". He's not skinny. Julian Rishwain was also listed at 6'5", but Julian Rishwain made less than I did. The thing that I like about Howie is that, he's got a physical frame. He can really play kind of bully ball from the perimeter. And I think that's something that UNLV really lacked last season. They didn't have, my apologies. They didn't have a lot of perimeter size last season outside of Jaden Henley. And so I think that Howie's going to be really important for this team, kind of as a glue guy, a do-it-all player who's going to help, keep the Rebels afloat, to contribute to a well-run system. And yeah, I really like this signing. I think it's really good. Howie's a solid player. I can't wait to watch him play for the Runnin' Rebels. I believe he is a senior, so this will be his only season of eligibility. And so he doesn't have any JUCO years like a guy like Al Green does. And so Howie, don't expect Howie to stick around. I think this is going to be his last season, but Howie came to Vegas and he committed, and we're pretty excited about having him. And I think he is, he's not going to be the leading scorer, but all the talent in the world, a guy that really came into his own, and a guy that I think at the end of the season will look back on and think he was a steal. I think he's going to be very important, and I do expect him to be a starter depending on his performance in camp and over the summer. So one more commitment to talk about. And this one was a surprise. He was not a guy that I had on my radar basically at all. He is Isaac Williamson. So let's pull up Isaac Williamson. Let's share up his stat. Isaac Williamson, class of 2025 player. He was the California basketball state champion. He was only a 3-star recruit out of high school. I think he was probably, I don't know how close he was to being a 4-star, but he's kind of one of these guards that bigger schools can overlook. And I don't want to call him a diamond in the rough because I don't think he's that rough. I think he's actually a pretty, complete player, or as complete as a freshman guard can be. And a guy that I would say that he kind of reminds me of is actually Donovan Dent. Now, obviously, Donovan Dent was a lot further along in his basketball career. I'm not comparing him, coming in as a freshman to who Donovan Dent eventually became at New Mexico. And ironically, he was committed to New Mexico and Richard Pitino before the coaching change, before Eric Olin became the head coach at the University of New Mexico. He's 6'1", 6'2", maybe. But, he is kind of a clutch player. I mean, he's a gamer. I went back when I read through this article and watched some of his tape. You look at him, and this is, a huge three that he hit in the California State Championship, leading his team to the California State Championship. He decommitted from New Mexico once Richard Pitino left that job. He had offers from Colorado State, and ultimately, ends up going through a connection. I think this is a Justin Hawkins recruit. He plays for a club school, an AAU team, I should say, called Compton Magic. So I would think that this recruit, and it would seem because Justin Hawkins was the first person to talk about it, I would say that he was kind of the one that led this recruiting. I think that's probably a fair assumption. And, do I expect Isaac Williamson to come in next season and to be kind of a player that plays significant minutes? No, I really don't. But I do think that Isaac Williamson will be a very nice pickup. And it's a guy who by the end of next season could be a significant player for the Runnin' Rebels. Could be, depending on injuries, depending on health, depending on, if he can kind of prove himself. It's really tough when you're a freshman guard. We saw that with Draw. It's really tough when you're a freshman guard to dive into and be a part of rotations. But the guy that I would say that I and most Rebel fans are still hoping that we can land. And I guess so now that we have the recruits that we've gotten, I think Coach Pastner is doing a great job. But the thing that this team needs, guys, and yes, Tavon brings up a great point here. Pastner is a defensive coach by nature, and you look at a lot of these players. I don't know that Al Green's a great defender, but Draw or Draven or whatever you say, however you say his name, Draw is a very good defensive. He's got very good defensive skills as a player. I think that Howie Fleming has all the potential in the world and has shown that he's a pretty good defensive player as well. Emmanuel Steffen, very good defensive prospect. But when you look at Coach Pastner, and his, kind of reputation as a head coach, his goal is to build a good defensive roster that can get out on the break and play in transition. When I was looking at Coach Pastner's resume, and when I did a deeper dive, not just the initial night, my initial angry reaction to Coach Pastner being hired, the thing that stuck out to me most about Coach Pastner is when you look at his career, you look at his defenses. Now, obviously not every year was good. There were years like his first season at Georgia Tech, where he had the 259th ranked, where he had his last 2 seasons at Georgia Tech where he didn't have a top 100 defense. But the biggest thing, and look at this column right here, adjusted defensive efficiency. This is KenPom. This is the best statistical website to know to learn about teams and players and coaches. When you look at Coach Pastner, the thing that always sticks out to me about his resume is his team's defensive efficiency. When he made the tournament in 2021, they were the 68th ranked defense. Not spectacular, but solid. In 2020, they were the 16th ranked defense. 2019, 43rd. 2018, 61st. 2017, his first season at Georgia Tech, they were the 6th ranked defense in the country. Even at Memphis, in the years where things didn't go great for him, they were 47th and 61st, 50th, 17th, 17th. You know, Pastner is a guy that is looking to build a defensive roster. It's not quite there yet for the Runnin' Rebels, but Pastner is certainly going to be prioritizing guys that that can play defense. Martin asked, do you know what's going on with Barrett Peary? His ex-profile still has him as a coach at UNLV. So I can speculate a little bit about this. Based on kind of what happened with Coach Peary, he's not an on-the-bench assistant at UNLV as far as we are aware. He is still involved in the program somehow. In what capacity, I don't really know. Coach Peary, I think he's got ties to Vegas that are keeping him at least for the next year from having like a frantic desire to leave. Peary's got a great reputation. I mean, he's a great coach. And so if Coach Peary wanted to be an assistant at Weber State or, you know, wanted to be, I even think there's some head coaching jobs that he could go after. If he wanted to be at SUU or if he wanted to be at whatever school you think of, like Coach Peary could not be here right now. He could be already announced as an assistant coach in someplace else. But he's still clearly, you looking at the players that we got, Mason Abedin, Tyron Jones, James Evans, you look at guys that he played a big role in recruiting. Coach Peary is still clearly involved in the program in some way. In what way, I don't really know. In my opinion, if I had to guess, and again, this is not based on any information at all, he's kind of acting like a GM type person for the program right now. I don't know if we're still signing him paychecks. I'm not sure. But Coach Peary is still involved in UNLV somehow. And I hope that the school clarifies what his role is at some point. I agree with you, Martin. He is a piece of the puzzle that needs to stay. In fact, I would say that Coach Peary is probably just about the only thing in the Kevin Kruger era that consistently worked for me. His recruiting, his coaching, I think he's a good coach too. I think he's kind of the glue that held the Kevin Kruger era together in a lot of ways. And I'm sure Kevin wouldn't like me to say that, you know, wouldn't appreciate me saying that, but I think it's true. And so there are still holes. Back to the roster. There are still pretty big holes that this roster has. Yeah, totally. I just feel like he might have already been scooped up if he was going to be an assistant or an associate head coach in another school. The timeline just is weird to me, and the fact that we don't have any confirmation from him. He's a person that I've talked to, that a lot of fans have talked to. He's a person that deeply cares about UNLV and UNLV social media, and the perception of our program online. So, he was a part of a staff that got fired. So I don't want to reach out to him. But I know people have, and I guess, the school and he will announce whatever his role is, wherever that is, whether that be at UNLV or another school, when they decide it's the best time. And so, good stuff. Josh Pastner, there's still some holes with this roster. What are the holes? What else does this UNLV roster need? The name that we're all kind of hoping that he announces is a guy. Let me pull it up. FIU. Let me pull him up. I want to bring up some highlights so we can look at him. The guy that, we had gotten a report that he was going to be on UNLV's campus is a guy named Jaden Brewer. So Jaden, I wish he had a YouTube created portal highlights thing. I don't see one of those online, but Jaden Brewer is the type of player. I don't know if UNLV is going to get him. I feel like if he was on campus today, and we don't actually know when he was supposed to take his visit to UNLV, but Jaden Brewer was on a not very good FIU team, and he's played there for 3 years, and this was kind of his breakout season as their best player. He's a 6'6" guard. that doesn't take or make a ton of three-pointers, 12 of 58 from the field on the season. He's a guy that, only shot 20% from three. But if you look at his 2-point, I mean, this guy shot 255 times from two as a 6'6" guard, 55% shooting percentage from inside the arc. Takes fall away jumpers, big size, big guard, with real athleticism, who I think could come in and, apparently is taking a visit to UNLV. I would assume if we do not hear that he has been, he's committed to UNLV in the next 24 hours, that he's probably not going to end up being a target that we get. But the name that everybody needs to be looking out for is Jaden Brewer. The guy that I would compare him to is Keenan Blackshear, if you remember him from Reno. He was a 6'6" kind of guard that took a lot of mid-range jumpers. Now you may think, mid-range jumpers, those are the bad shots. But, in basketball, the best type of shot is one that you can score with efficiently. If you can take mid-range jumpers and score efficiently on them, then it's a really good shot. It doesn't matter that analytics say that 2-pointers are not as good as 3-pointers. If you as an individual player can take and make 2-point kind of mid-range 15-footers, even if analytics say that's not a good idea, if you can do it and do it efficiently, then it is a good shot. And this guy, Jaden Brewer, who I think has all the skill to be UNLV's leading scorer and best player next season. If we can land him, I think that would be a real home run type guy that UNLV is targeting. Another guy that I've seen with kind of a similar vein is Jamel Jones. Now, he's not quite as big as Jaden Brewer is. He's only 6'4", but he similarly, in fact, even more so, he played for Cal State Bakersfield last year. He was their best player coming into his final season. He shot 375 times from inside the arc, both at the rim. He was a much better 3-point shooter than Jaden Brewer is. Not great or anything, not super high volume, but 35%, made 34 threes last season. He's another target that UNLV has popped up on his list. And I think that UNLV has a chance with this guy. He's in the transfer portal. Another target, besides Jaden Brewer, that I would be incredibly happy if UNLV was able to go out there and get. Look out for him. If you see anything about him committing, it's a very good name. It's a guy that I would be very happy to add. Again, similar profile, similar shot type profile to Jaden Brewer, but a slightly better 3-point shot than Jaden Brewer has. And another guy that I think could be a great target for the Runnin' Rebels. So Patrick McCaw, Patrick McCaw was a better 3-point shooter than these guys probably. I like him more probably as a player than Patrick McCaw. Sorry, I mean I like Patrick McCaw more as a player than him, but not a terrible comparison. Patrick McCaw did shoot threes sometimes though. He wasn't a great 3-point shooter, not super high volume, but so UNLV is still missing. I think we still do not have who should be our leading scorer on this roster. I think UNLV is still missing their best player. Draw is a very nice piece. Al Green, very nice piece. Howie Fleming, very nice piece. All those guys will play prominent roles in the rotation, but none of them, in my view, are the best player. Maybe one of them could prove me wrong and be our best player, and maybe Draw is going to be our best player. I think he's probably the closest thing to that we have. But I think we need a guy on the perimeter with size, somebody preferably 6'5" or above on the perimeter that can handle the ball and score in bunches. And I think we can get that. They're targeting a bunch of guys like that. The next thing we need somebody 6'5", even like 6'6" or 6'7" would be better, to be honest with you. Those targets are kind of difficult to come by, but there certainly are people out there that we can get that fit that kind of mode. That doesn't discount Josh Pastner had a very good day today and has had a very good week, and I think he's doing great. And just a quick side note, I have felt bad about my reaction to the Josh Pastner hire. I don't need to rehash that. I feel like I was unfair to him when he was hired as our coach. But I, through means, got access to a way to communicate directly with Coach Pastner. And I sent Coach Pastner a message and I'm not the only one. There have been a couple other people that have done this. I'm not going to give out, his email because I don't want people flooding his email address. But Coach Pastner took the time to personally respond to me. And I'm not the only one. He's taking the time to personally talk to fans as individuals. He's taking the time to post things on social media. His social media team is taking the time to really invest into UNLV's brand and to try and build excitement around the program. And for a guy that said the things that I said right after his hire, to take the time, I apologized to him. I said, I'm sorry, I was unfair to you. And to take the time, he said, look, I get it. You love the program. You have passion. It's okay. Let's move forward and make Runnin' Rebel basketball the best that we can possibly make it. So I really appreciate Coach Pastner. I think he's doing a great job so far. Obviously, wins on the court are all that matters, but this is the kind of guy that's our head coach, the kind of guy that takes the time to individually talk to fans, even fans that have a stupid little podcast like me that talked bad about him. I think that says volume about Josh Pastner, the human being. I think that says volume. That speaks volume about Josh Pastner, the coach, that he can take that kind of criticism and take it on the chin, and then just kind of move on and work on building the program up that we all love. So obviously, we need our best player still, I think. The other thing that I think we need one more big man, one more kind of 6'8" to 6'10" or 6'9" to 6'11" big man who can play defense. Emmanuel Stephan's a very nice piece, but the roster is still missing a guy who can kind of back up Emmanuel Stephan. I think Emmanuel Stephan will start, but UNLV needs another big man. In fact, two big men would be nice. If they could get kind of a younger one, kind of like Pop, that could be kind of bench depth. I think that would be worth investing in. And then another big man that can play. And then UNLV also needs a bruising forward. He needs somebody. I brought up Rob Whaley. Now, Rob Whaley's health is kind of a mystery at this point in time. We don't really know whether Rob Whaley's ever going to be the kind of player that he was in the past. But, a bruising style four that can score on the interior, I think is needed, because Emmanuel Stephan is not an offensive threat. He's not the kind of guy that's going to light up a box score. And so a bruising four that can score, a big man, a five that can defend the rim. And UNLV is missing its best player on the perimeter still, I think. Its highest scoring player on the perimeter. I think the roster, in order to be functional where it needs to be next season, if it can add three more solid players, a bruising four, a perimeter scoring threat that can fill up a box score, and another big man who can provide support to Emmanuel Stephan in the front court, I think it's the makings of a roster that can contend in the Mountain West next year. That doesn't mean we're going to be picked. I still expect UNLV to be picked 6th or 7th in the Mountain West next year. They just haven't been a lot better than that. His daddy won't let him come back. Who are you talking about? Sorry, I'm not sure you're talking about. No context. And guys, please put your comments in the chat. I'll put them up and we'll talk about them. Talk about what you're thinking. I'm not sure whose daddy won't let him come back. Are you talking about Rob Whaley? Sorry. Yep, you're talking about Rob Whaley. I think that Rob, to be honest with you, would be open to coming back. Yeah, there you go. Yes, my mistake. I think Rob, as a player, I don't want to talk about what his dad wants. I want to talk about what Rob wants as a player. I think Rob would be open to coming back. Obviously, I can't speak for him, but he would have to, show that he's physically capable of being on the floor next year and being healthy. I think his physical fitness would probably be, up for scrutiny in that. But I don't think Rob will come back, but a player like Rob, maybe somebody that has a little bit more mobility on the defensive side of the ball, is something this roster needs. And so we're still kind of in the midst of basketball season, but let's quickly talk about football. I was deathly ill over the weekend. I was not feeling well, and it was my niece's baptism. And so I was not at the open practice on Saturday, but I asked and talked to a bunch of people that were there. I saw all the video that was posted from that open practice. I really tried to kind of dig in and see. Yeah, I mean, you're right about all this, Dodger fan. He's been eating. Uh, oh, okay. I guess before I go into football. Yes, we need size, long wings, and a power forward. Yes, completely right. How much NIL do I think that UNLV will have to work with this year? Again, a lot of people get really upset about NIL numbers being leaked. This player is being offered this, and this is how much NIL a school has. And people don't like that because they feel like maybe it's unfair to the players who are trying to negotiate NIL, or they don't like, the amount that schools have in NIL being public. UNLV, I would think that Pastner is trying to build his NIL right now, trying to build his NIL system out. Kevin Kruger did not have a great NIL last season. I think it was a little bit less than $1 million. That's what has been reported and said. Pastner's is higher than that. 1.5 to 2 would be my guess right now. I think they're getting to 2 million. Really, they got to be at that $3 or $4 million range. But Rome isn't built in a day. I would guess around 2, 1.5 maybe. Pastner is doing everything he can to get that number as high as possible. And even though he's still recruiting right now, he's spending a lot of his time rallying the troops, trying to get money, trying to build a roster that he can afford and that can get us to the NCAA tournament next year. He is not, coming into next season with the belief that he's going to build a roster that over the course of 2 years is going to get us where we need to go. Pastner is trying to make the NCAA tournament next season. That's the goal. He will go after veteran players that have 1 year left as opposed to younger players with the goal of getting us to the NCAA tournament next season, 1 year from now. So 1.5 to 2 is my guess, but I could totally be off base. It's not that hard to get information about NIL that's paid to players. And I think that Pastner's still fundraising right now, so we just don't know that exact number yet. But that's my guess. So I want to make sure. Yeah, Boise's 3. These numbers are kind of up and down. I think we're 2. I'm not sure that Boise's 3. I know that they're probably higher than us right now. But the thing is, like, Josh Pastner isn't done negotiating and isn't done fundraising. He's still raising money right now. So, like, if I tell you that Josh Pastner has 2 million in NIL right now, which again, I don't know the exact number, it's higher than what Kevin had, that's for sure. That number could change tomorrow because he could get a bigger infusion of cash. Schools will generally overestimate how much NIL they have. They want to make to recruits. They want them to think, they want to make recruits feel like they have a ton of money. As a BYU person, I do support BYU. I know there's a few UNLV fans that have a problem with that. 10 years ago, I probably would have been right there with you. I would have never supported BYU, but BYU kind of has built a reputation as being money bags. They have all the money in the world. And I think that does a very good job. That does a very good thing for you when you're trying to recruit players because they have the perception that the school that they're going to, the school that's recruiting them, has a ton of money. But yeah, I think that there's plenty of room to grow. And Pastner's doing everything that he can. He's bringing NIL money in of his own and really investing himself as the coach of our team into giving us the best monetary chance to win. Yeah, this is the number. This is about the number that I had seen too, which was actually lower than the previous season, the season with Keelan Boone. Last season's team, the 980K number, just under $1 million. So I think that Pastner's going to get to 2, but again, that number's fluid. It could change. Every school that's telling you what they have for NIL is probably lying about it or exaggerating about it in some way. NIL is messy. There's no regulation around it. There's no transparency around it. Everybody knows everything and everybody knows nothing. So take it all with a giant grain of salt, guys. So to football, spring open practice, they did have a scrimmage. It doesn't seem like, from what I can tell, and again, I'm not an on-the-ground practice reporter, but I do pay very close attention to what is being said about practice. I do talk to people that do those kinds of things. It doesn't seem like either Alex Orji or Anthony Calandria are creating massive amounts of space in this quarterback battle. I wouldn't expect, and I don't think Dan Mullen wants it like this either. I wouldn't expect Dan Mullen to have a starting quarterback coming out of spring. I think this is a really good quarterback battle, to be honest with you. Very good. I think that, both of these guys bring different things to the table. And ultimately, who's going to win the quarterback battle? I don't know. If you had to ask me, say Anthony Calandria, who I would still be, that's still my favorite because I think Alex Orji can contribute in other positions and in other places on the field. And maybe like a wildcat package, or a shotgun package where he just kind of runs the ball into the end zone when we get to the red zone. I think that, this quarterback battle will not be decided until the fall camp. And I'm going to be Calandria because I think he's a better thrower of the football. But we just don't really know. Something that I saw today that I can't remember exactly who said it, but at the start of spring camp, the offensive line and the secondary, two of really the most important parts of a defense, or the defensive line as well. The whole defense is important, but there were kind of struggles with the offensive line. Losing Ben Chrisman, who tragically died, certainly did not help. He was a guy that was probably going to be a starter on the offensive line. Could have been a starter. I don't know that exactly for sure, but Ben Chrisman's tragic death certainly was a blow to the program and really sad. Apparently there is legitimate progress being made by the offensive line, and UNLV lost a lot of great players last season on both the offensive and defensive line. And so I think that there's legitimate progress there. I think that also I feel very confident about our receiver group, whether it be Trey Omier, Jojo Earl, or Omier, or our really nice stable of tight ends that we have. I feel pretty good in the offense. The offensive line is going to be the key to the offense being efficient. Dan Mullen probably definitely recognizes that, because we have good running backs between Jet Thomas and other guys that are on the roster. Jalen Glover, who they transfer from Utah. We have good receivers. Jojo Earl, Omier. There's a bunch we could talk about. Actually, there's a bunch of guys on the outside that I really like. And so the big question mark for me is, can we block? You're not going to be able to throw the ball if you don't block. You're not going to be able to run the ball if you don't block. Run blocking or pass blocking. I think we have pretty good quarterback room. I like Cam Friel, Alex Orji, and Anthony Calandria. All three of those guys are guys with real talent who could lead UNLV to some serious success. So I'm very happy with all of the position groups. And the one question mark that I have on the offensive side of the ball is the offensive line. I don't know what that line is going to look like exactly. There's a lot of competition going on right now, and I feel confident that UNLV is going to be able to put together an adequate offensive line, but I think that's a position group that you could see some fall off from this past season to next season. The other group, we have some news on the defensive line. So Tanmis Adele, he is a former Texas A&M, Michigan State, Texas State player. He was a 4-star player out of high school. He's a defensive edge rusher. And he's a guy that's had serious talent, has kind of bounced around a lot, had a little bit of controversy with some felony charges. He was the 85th ranked player in the 2021 class. And he's a guy that has all the talents in the world. And I think this UNLV stop is going to be kind of his last chance. He was actually supposed to be at Texas State last year. But some issues with the law, which, my joke that I said, right after we got this commit was, get this man a Baconator. Las Vegas is a crazy place, so if Adele is going to come to UNLV, as he's a 6'4", 6'5" edge rusher, who's going to be a very, very, very good defensive lineman, if he can put it together. I'm looking forward to seeing if he can kind of be a key cog on that defensive line that can get pressure on the quarterback. And I wouldn't be surprised, guys. Look, this is his last chance. He's only got 1 year of eligibility left. But I wouldn't be surprised if Adele is going to be our leading, he's going to lead the team in sacks next season. I would not be surprised by that at all. This is his last chance. Dan Mullen's the right guy to be under. And I think he's probably going to be a very good player. The last position group to talk about is really the linebacking, and corner core. Yeah, I mean, lots going on. It was New Mexico, Texas State, and Texas A&M. Those three schools. Yeah, we need UNLV to do an NIL sponsor. Maybe I should reach out to Wendy's so we can do an NIL sponsorship with Wendy's. I think that would be pretty good, right? By the way, guys, yeah, it was Tony Cordasco who talked about this, by the way. Thank you, Master Rebel. We have a lot of guys on this team, whether they be Jake Pope, who I think is going to be our starting safety. Kind of seems like that's our starting guy in the backfield. Not in the backfield, but deep as a safety. We've got a bunch of DBs and a lot of guys that are kind of on their last stop. And sorry, did my computer lag out? I'm sorry about that. We've got a lot of guys that this is kind of their last chance. And I think Dan Mullen's the guy to extract the most out of these players. But these guys are really talented. Dan Mullen is kind of the sheep herder that's looking for all the lost sheep to come in and build an awesome roster year one. And so I just ate a Baconator 2 hours ago. I'm contributing. I cannot eat a Baconator. I think Baconators are absolutely disgusting. And I love burgers. I really do. I think they're awesome. I'm a big burger guy. Love going in and out. But boy, oh boy, I would rather die. I think my arteries would rather. I cannot see how I could not get through a Baconator. Couldn't do it. Zach Arnett, which by the way, guys, the Zach Arnett story probably absolutely not true. Definitely not true. We would have heard about it publicly if it was true. It was kind of a fun rumor, and I feel bad that he. I feel bad that he kind of got the expense, but yeah, you're right. Baconators are just too much, man. It's like too much meat. I could use I don't like lettuce on hamburgers generally, but there just needs to be something other than bacon and beef. And so I guess we'll see. I feel pretty good about UNLV football right now. Again, my early prediction for the season, I think 8-4 is kind of the floor. 9-3 is probably the most likely outcome. 10-2, 11-1, those seasons are on the line. But I worry about our defense. Marcel McDuffie is probably our best returning D-back. And yeah, Arnett got a ton of pub for that story. I wonder if his wife was online and like, guy, Zach, hey, bro, what's going on here? I don't know. I feel kind of bad for Zach Arnett because that's a pretty rough story to have told about you. But it is what it is. Sorry to Zach Arnett if I proliferated that story. Whatever happens, it's in the past now. Wish you the best in the future. But I do think that, to me, the defense is something that's going to hold this team back from having that truly, that true dream type season. And Dan Mullen's got his work cut out for him if he's going to kind of put that type of season together. But I do think that UNLV will be a very high level team next season. Second in the Mountain West is absolutely the standard that should be set, at least second in the Mountain West, and challenging Boise should be the standard. I'm pretty excited. I am most definitely going to the game in Boise next season. Nothing's going to stop me. So guys, that is all that I had for the show tonight. I'm excited. I'm really excited about UNLV basketball. I am crazy excited about UNLV football. I'm really grateful for all this increased activity that the new basketball hire, Josh Pastner, has brought to UNLV Twitter. I think it's time, we should rally. We got two great guys as our head coaches in football and basketball. I get, there's going to be frustrating losses and bad losses. And we should criticize and vent after those losses. I'm not saying we should hold back or anything, but we have a really great opportunity as a fan base to build upon, build upon this momentum that's being created by all this positivity coming out right now. The positivity crowd, I'm a part of it right now, guys. I am. I'm all in. I'm all in on Mellon. I'm all in on Mullen. I'm all in on Pastner. And I'm just really loving, and Lindy staying, totally. Lindy staying as opposed to and not going to Arizona. Huge. I mean, just so many good stories coming out of UNLV. Jaden Brewer, please commit. Yes, please, Jaden Brewer. But there are guys besides Jaden Brewer that could be really excellent players for us next year too. So it's not just Jaden Brewer. But guys, if Jaden Brewer commits, I might have another show later this week. But there will definitely always be, for the time being, shows Tuesday night around 7:00. That's the schedule now. There was a party switch. There was a party switch in the positivity crowd. Yeah, the thing is, people think that burners are always just negative all the time. Burner's going to get the baseball coach fired next. Yeah, the baseball team's struggling right now. The thing is, people think burners and online fanboys are always purely negative, but we're not. We were always positive about Odom. We were always positive about football, even if we were mad sometimes about in-game, decision making. I feel pretty good. We got some guys to play, to rebound and play good D. It's a good base. Yeah. Josh Pastner and Mullen are building a good base at UNLV now. So, guys, that's where we're going to cut the show. That's where we're going to end the show tonight. I will upload this to Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It'll be on my Substack as well. Please like and share it with your friends, family, anybody that you can think of that loves UNLV sports. I'm envisioning this show getting even bigger and better, more professional. Not that I expect to ever kind of, be begging UNLV for a press pass. I don't need one of those. But you will see the production level go up pretty soon after I've passed the bar exam. So, guys, I appreciate you all. Have a wonderful night. Please, Jaden Brewer, commit. Please, couple Jamel Jones, commit. Give us those star players. Round out that basketball roster. Please, defensive and offensive lines and defensive secondaries. You guys got this. Keep improving. And we will talk soon. I appreciate you all. And let's run, folks. See you later.